Hi guys, it's been a minute. I'm honored to be here again for another episode of the Weeknight Conversations. This year, after the episode we did about pursuing dreams, I felt that from the conversations I was having with people and the time I've spent with people so far this year, many of our conversations have been around navigating love. So I felt like having a series of conversations around this same topic, navigating love. But for our February episode, I wrote about something that most times excites very many Christians, and I just wanted to give it my own perspective, of course, from my experience, the things I've learned and seen through the few years I've been around. And I think it's going to be quite helpful. Now, for the first series of Navigating Love, I wrote about how to find the right person to marry as a Christian, because there are very many ideologies and perspectives out there. But my concern was around how Christians make this decision, because many times there's so much to say about how people make this decision. And I just wanted to share with us my own. It's really my own perspective. So, disclaimer, in case you don't really agree with whatever I'm going to say, it's fine. You have your way of doing things. This is my perspective, as I have learned through scripture and experience. So, how do you choose the right person to marry? Is the right person even a thing? I don't know. But from what I've learned, this is one of the areas that challenge many Christians. You will find a Christian single person who has spent time in church, they have been faithfully serving the Lord, they pray, and they have made multiple decisions in life about many things. But when it comes to choosing the person to marry, it becomes a shenanigan. So I just felt the need to share a few things that I've learned over time, leading to my ability to choose who to marry. And allow me to share just 6 things that I have personally learned and I believe will be helpful to you in case you're in that category. But also, you could be married, and there are some things that I'm going to share that could help improve the health of your marriage. Not that I'm an expert, but because these are for lack of a better word, generic principles that could help if anyone who wants really puts them in practice. Now, one of the things that I learned from my experience was the fact that self-discovery comes first. It really does. To say that you can't start the journey of marriage, because marriage is not the day you speak the vows, it's the whole process from who you become to who you choose and etc. I learned the hard way that if you've really not given time to add value to yourself and to find yourself, it's going to be one of those hectic seasons that you'll have in life, especially if you're trying to find the person to marry when you haven't found yourself. Truth be told, marriage doesn't give you an identity. It just reveals who you already are when you get married. So many times you hear people say, I married this person and then later they changed. No. People are who they are. And it works for you to really find that thing that you are before you bring it into another person's life or before you bring it into the institute of marriage. So self-discovery is first. Why is it important? I mean, there's so many things that contribute to who we become over time in life. How you've been brought up, how life situations have shaped your attitude and perspective. And many times it's very important for you to figure out what those things are that make you you before you start to choose the person who should fit into this thing we are trying to call becoming one flesh. The Bible tells us in Genesis that for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother, and he'll be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. The Bible emphasizes that the two become one flesh, and we know that flesh is the soulish realm of man, that seat of emotions, the will, the intellect of man. So the becoming one flesh is a process that happens through the whole marriage life cycle. And if you don't know who you are, it becomes hard to navigate that space. So it's important that every person, before you start evaluating other people and writing lists of what you want in other people, you know who you are. Before you start putting standards and, it's better to know who you are, what your values are, what your patterns are, what your standards are. So then when you're trying to make a choice of who should be compatible to this that you are, you're not guessing. You're just, in the article I called it discerning. You are discerning who should fit into this. It's very important, very key. And I will talk about that a bit more, I think, in the next point. Which leads me to the second point that I grew to appreciate, which is knowing your core needs as a person. Every human being, apart from your values, apart from your standards, there are things that define your core self. There are things that if you didn't have them, or if these things were not in your life, if you were not seeing these things being fed into you, like in who you are, you don't find fulfillment. You don't find what we call that effortless happiness in relationships, or the fulfillment you need to find or have in relationships. It's rather important that we take time to invest effort in knowing such things about ourselves, especially when it comes to core needs, because it's, as much as knowing yourself is generic, there's also need to understand the things that make you you, the things that feed into what makes you happy or what brings you joy. When you find those things, you will find completeness. I'll give you an example of what I mean. I've had conversations with people who will tell you, if a man doesn't have money, I can't get married to them, I can't date them. The issue is really not the money, because money is a variable for many people in life. It can be here today and gone tomorrow. That's not a core need. The core need that someone is trying to communicate, and they are probably they have not understood or discovered, is maybe security. Because maybe for that person, to have a man who has money, they feel like they'll be taken care of and there's nothing to worry about. So they feel secure. So security becomes the core need. And then now you start to define what informs your security. And of which, in that case, for that person, it probably could be money. But there's another person who says, I need a man who buys me this and that, or who does this and these things for me. And maybe the core need there is care. You feel most fulfilled when someone really cares for you and about you. So it then becomes a quest for individuals to identify the things that really matter to them. I'll give you an example. In my journey, I think part of the mistakes that I learned from in my courtship quest and experience was that I never knew, okay, they could have been there, but I'd never like put definition to them, those core needs that I had as an individual. And many times when I am in a relationship and those core needs are not being fed into or fed, I feel like the relationship is struggling, you know, whether it's friendship or whatever. And one of those things for me is honesty, that I value it so much that when I feel like I'm being honest with someone and they are not being honest with me for most of the time, there's that discomfort that I have with that person, that it kills the vibe I could have with them if we were to build a genuine friendship. Now that consequently definitely makes me a little bit uncomfortable and unhappy with a friendship, and it kills the compatibility that I could have with that person. You know, so there was those things that I found a little bit uncomfortable to nurture with someone because they don't align with what feeds into my core needs. Let me explain what I mean. God creates Adam, and then at some point he realizes that it's not good for a man to be alone. But before he realizes that, he has given Adam all options of companionship, animals, etc. But Adam doesn't find companionship in those. So one day he says, okay, let's make Adam a helper. So he puts Adam to sleep, and then the Bible says he makes woman out of his rib, and then Adam wakes up, and the Bible says God brings the woman to Adam, and then Adam says, now this is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. Now, to mean that he had been trying to find something that looks and feels like this, but he hadn't found it. And when God brings the woman to Adam, he all of a sudden recognizes, oh, this is the thing I've been looking for. Now, there are two things I want to explain there. One, this answers the question that many people usually ask. How did you know that she was the one? How did you know that he was the one? Usually that question is answered in a very cliche way, and you'll hear people say, well, when you find the person, you will know. But it then makes sense. What do you mean, I will know? We see that because the woman is gotten out of the core of Adam, it's easy for him to recognize himself in that woman. I mean, she was made out of a rib that forms the skeleton, you know? And when Adam looks at this woman, he can quickly tell, this is rare. This is something that has come out of me. This looks like me. This is it. God didn't have to tell him, by the way, when you were asleep, we got a rib out of you and we made this. Do you like it? No. Adam could quickly tell because it was out of his core. That's why you hear statements like, the women we marry come out of us. You marry yourself, or you marry a better version of yourself. Why? Because it's all around the core of what makes us who we are. Yeah? Recently I was joking with someone and I was reminding them of the old time song that says, I don't know who sang it, but it's a Ugandan vibe, really old song that says, nfunda n'omubi ng'azaala ng'alima ng'ayaniriza n'abagenyi, to mean that if the worst comes to the worst, I would rather fidget with an ugly woman, but she can give birth, she can cultivate or become entrepreneur, or, you know, figuratively to say she should be industrial. And then lastly, hospitable. He defined his core needs in a relationship that for me, as long as I have a woman who can give birth, I'll have children, I'm a family man. Two, who is industrial or industrious. 3, who is hospitable. I'll be good. You get? So it's important for every person who is looking for a partner to define their core needs, because then those feed directly into the choice that you're going to make. They directly inform the decision you're going to make on a particular person. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you're going to find yourself confused about options. You'll have 3, 4, 5 people who all look like candidates, but you don't know who to choose because you don't know yourself, you don't know your core needs. Yeah. So the first 2 points are really key in this experience. It's important for you to discover yourself, but 2, to define your core needs so that they inform your decision of who to marry. Now, the third thing that I grew to appreciate is compatibility. And to say that really compatibility is not about feelings, it's about how we fit together. I think you must have heard this notion that love is not enough for a marriage relationship. To be clear, agape is the foundation of marriage. Agape is the love of God Himself. That is enough because it's the foundation of everything that I'm talking about. But the love that they say is not enough is the eros, the romantic one that defines chemistry and all that. Truth be told, there are people who started with chemistry, and anyway, every romantic relationship starts with chemistry, but it's not what sustains a marriage. It's important for you to understand that for you to define compatibility with another person, you have to define the first 2 things that I've talked about. Who are you? What's your personality? What are your values? What are your patterns? What are your standards? What are your core needs? Then, if you meet a person who fits into those things, you start to now define compatibility. What that means is that even when feelings fleet, or when you are not in the mood to love someone, that day when you don't feel like this thing is working, it's those things that will stabilize your relationship because they still make sense. You still appreciate these things about this person. That's why many times when you go for therapy, they will ask you, tell me 5 things that you love about this person. And if you can mention those 5 things, your brain will be awakened to the fact that, oh, there's actually something to appreciate about this person. And there's just 3 things that I don't like about this person, but the things I appreciate about this person outweigh the things that I don't like about this person. And that is important to notice. Yeah. So if we are talking about compatibility, then we are saying, how does this person fit into the things I treasure, like values, like core needs, like the things that truly make sense to me. And now when I bring this person on, in a normal day, we will not kill each other. That's why people had difficulty staying with one another during COVID, because now they had time to be together and they couldn't figure out how to spend the day, because just maybe life had given them an excuse of busyness and they never had time to really test their compatibility in life. And now they have to be together for 21 days without anything else but being together. And that broke many people, or opened their eyes to the things that truly matter in a relationship. So it's very important to appreciate the idea of compatibility in a relationship and to appreciate it before you make a final decision about someone. Very, very, very important. The 4th thing that I also learned to appreciate is purpose. Purpose is a non-negotiable. Non-negotiable in a way that, or in the sense that in all things in life, purpose gives us direction. So It's not love, then purpose. It's purpose and then love. Because purpose is what gives direction to love. But this purpose is purpose for your life as an individual. When you have discovered your purpose as a person, it really gives direction to everything, not just love. There is purpose for your marriage, but that is discovered over time after getting married. But your purpose for life is something that you need to discover yourself or to figure out yourself before you bring someone into your life. If you bring someone into your life without understanding what your purpose is, now if you're a man, it means ideally the person is coming to do nothing, because the Bible calls our wives help meet. So how are they fitting into your life enough to help you? What are they coming to help is the question, if you don't have a purpose. But also as a woman, if you're going into a life that has no purpose, what are you going to help? But also you as a woman, if you haven't found your purpose and appreciated it, how are you going to help? How have you discovered or figured out your direction of help? You get, so it's a very sensitive place that if you find yourself caught up in such a situation where you've not defined that, you might waste a lot of time. This is the truth. Marriage is a partnership. We come in to partner, okay, to do something that God has called us to do. So when you are choosing a partner, you are literally looking at someone who can best fit into this life as a partner, so that you run something God has called you to do together. That the dreams of your wife or the dreams of your husband can meet together at a common ground and build something beautiful for Jesus. So it's important, very, very, very important, for you to discover your purpose. If you don't do that, you are entering a huge space of possibilities without direction. And that can be very catastrophic, because it's better that you marry someone who is walking alongside you rather than just besides you. It can be very dangerous, because you can marry someone who can pull you away from your purpose. And when someone pulls you away from your purpose, you stop living. Because life is about what we were created to become. Very key. So if you have been in that state of confusion, defining who to marry, etc., maybe, just maybe, if you defined or figured out what your purpose is in life, it will give direction to many things, including who you should choose to work with. And I believe that would be very helpful, even as you navigate this whole complexity called love. The fifth thing is a bit controversial, but I think I grew to appreciate it. And it's the fact that being in the same church does not always mean having the same belief system. It's possible to believe the same thing, but not believe it the same way. A belief system is what constitutes a man's true conviction about the things of God. We could all be in the same church, listening to the same teaching, but we believe differently. And that can be very terrible, because there are many people who have been shocked by getting married to people in the same church. And then when they reached home after day one, they realized that probably the way they believe the things they hear is different. And this is why I usually emphasize that people need to build friendships before romantic relationships. Why? Because in the friendship, you get to discover how this person lives their life, how they believe, how they treat people, how they think, their perspective about many things. And in there, you get to discover whether this person is a fit in how I see life too. Because if you don't see, the hows of a person define so much about compatibility. So much. Otherwise, the biggest clashes and conflicts in marriage come from not seeing things the same way. And I'm not saying that when you marry someone, you see everything the same way, but there are some core things that you should see the same way, especially when it comes to belief systems. Otherwise, if you get married to someone who believes in eating their firstborn, it's a belief system. That means if you give birth to a child and you don't see them, it might be the end of you. But it's because you didn't consider as a red flag the differences in belief system. This is what I believe. It might be controversial, but this is what I believe. That you could actually have the same belief system even though you're not in the same church. Of course, as time goes on, the system aligns you to pray from the same church. Disclaimer, the best choice you could make is to marry someone who is under the same cover, the same spiritual cover. Beautiful. But in cases where, because this is the thing, you see, we sometimes tend to be under covers we are not genuinely feeding from. It's really peer pressure. Oh, friends of mine pray from this church, so I'm also going to pray from this church. It's not enough that your friends pray from a particular church. You pray from a particular church because you believe in their belief system, their values, and their doctrine, their language, their teaching, their doctrine. That defines your convictions. So if you find that you really don't, because this is how you know that you believe in the doctrine of your church. If you're putting it in practice and you're bearing fruit from what they are teaching. That means we can see it through the transformation of your life. We can see it in the choices that you make when you are faced with, hard decisions. If you are not doing those things in the church that you are praying from, you are really not feeding. You actually don't believe in their belief system. So you might find that getting married to that person who is from another church would be an alignment for you. I am not the one who defines where God calls you. So you need to figure that out. And sometimes marriage helps align certain people because they are in the wrong cover, honestly. So, with that said, being in the same church doesn't mean that you believe the same way, that you carry the same belief system. That's not true. And that should not be used as an excuse to say, this person has been in church for 10 years. How come? No, it doesn't mean that because they're in the same church, they believe what the church teaches. There are very many things or reasons why people come to particular churches. So don't be deceived. Check the person's true conviction. Check their system. Check how. Check their whys and hows in that church, and let that inform your decision when it comes to choosing a born again partner. Because we've seen people who knock even after choosing God-fearing, okay, not really God-fearing, born again people. I believe that you can be born again and not God-fearing. God-fearing is a process that God takes your heart through to revere Him. And that's regardless of denomination. It's because I hope it makes sense. So that's very core, and I think Christians need to take very big caution about it so that we don't confuse certain things, in the spirit of we are of the same church, etc. And I hope you get me clearly, because I know it can be a point of controversy, but I hope it makes sense. So it would help if you took time as a Christian to understand that it's not just enough to share or to have the same church attendance. Shared faith is deeper than that. It goes into what defines your hows and whys, the convictions you carry as a Christian before you make a decision to work with someone else. Yeah? The last point, which is the sixth, is I don't know how to call it, but I feel like many people have fallen into that trap. And I think, let me just call it this way. If you are trying to choose a partner, make sure you build on things that don't change. Don't make a marriage decision or a courtship decision basing on things that change. Money can change, looks can change, dreams can change. There are things that are variables. I call them variables. That's why I emphasized even about church, that you can get married to someone in the Anglican church and 5 years down the road, they find God a certain way and change churches. Will you divorce because the person is no longer an Anglican? You can marry someone who's Catholic and 3 years down the road, they get an encounter with God and their convictions become deeper than allegiance to a religion. Will you divorce them because they changed? Because they found God? So church becomes a variable. Religion becomes a variable. If your convictions in God align, it kills all the other excuses. Money is something that can change because someone might not have money today, but they will have it tomorrow. You never know. Jobs, etc., But there are things that don't change, like personality, like character. There are things that don't change. Someone's conviction, their perspective about life, if it's informed by truth, it doesn't change. So it's important for you to identify the things that truly matter before you make a decision on things that fleet. Someone can come and tell you, I had a dream that this person was my husband or my wife. But it's a dream and I wasn't there. Oh, I saw a vision and I was getting married to this person. What do you mean? It's you who had it. It's not in the Bible. The person you wasn't in the same vision with you. So it's a variable. Because that means that if you get married and you get another vision and it's showing you that you divorced this person, there's no foundation solid enough in things that can't bear two witnesses. Yeah? So it's important for us to learn to base our decisions on things that don't change, things that are eternal, things that are core, your values, your patterns, your things that go past the present moment, things that prepare you for eternity, so that it's not the things that fleet and change. Christian marriages are really guided by wisdom and they are not guided by pressure. Because all your friends are getting married, so you should. It's a season. Hey, your season is passing you. Wisdom. God give you wisdom to make the right decision for you, not for everyone else. You're not marrying for anyone. You're not marrying for anybody. It's you who will be with your partner forever. So you better make that decision right. You really better make that decision right. So, in conclusion, the choice of who to marry is really heavily dependent on you. By you, I mean that you take time in this time to prepare yourself, to discover who you are, to identify your core needs, to define your conviction, to define the hows and whys of your life as an individual, to establish yourself in the right conviction about the things of God, to build on things that last, things that do not change, things that are constant, like character and all these other things, before you try to impose the decision and choice on other people, because you will make the wrong decision if you don't base your choice on things that truly matter to you. Yeah? I think for a long time, I kept making mistakes because I never really sat down to discover those things about myself. And the day I started to identify the things that hurt me, the things that make me feel uncomfortable, the things that make me quite discomforted about certain actions, I started to pay attention. And when I paid attention, I realized that these are things that I am naturally and I can't change them. And because I can't change them, then I needed to look for someone who can easily and effortlessly fit into those things or feed into them. And the decision became easier. Now, it's easy for that person to feed into my purpose. It's easy for that person to feed into my needs. It's easy for that person to walk along with me when I make a decision, because I firstly identified what truly matters to me and figured out how it matters to her too. And we made a decision to forever. So that's the simple logic around these things, according to my experience and according to what I've learned in life. There could be other things, but that's what I can say that I have learned. There's something I want to actually show you that should help make sense of what I'm trying to explain. I have a laptop plug. This doesn't fit very well in most of our sockets in Uganda. Yeah? So if you want this, if you want to use, if you've bought a laptop and it has this kind of cable and plug, and you want to charge your laptop, the sockets are not the problem. There are actually many, but they are not the problem. What you need to figure out is how to enter this thing in the available sockets. So you see, it starts with primarily identifying how this thing works. It has two. So you'd have to figure out, how do I enter this in the socket? Now there are two options. Either you get either a stick or a toothpick or a pen cover and you force it into the socket. It will be hard to remove. Or you can look for a compromise. Which can help you fit this into the available socket. Yeah? So I find that many people come like this and they want to enter every socket without truly understanding that the available sockets are a certain way, and if this is to fit in them comfortably, then this particular person has to fix themselves by either obtaining something that is neutral and can help them figure out, like, meet in the middle. This is between the socket and the plug. These are the things that make relationships work. These small little things, the compromises, the understanding, the definition of what I've talked about, the core values, discovering yourself. It takes me, the owner of this laptop charger, to identify that this can't fit and then look for something that can help it fit. Because this answers two questions. One, that you firstly have to identify who you are. But in case you're already married and you really didn't pay attention to the things I'm talking about, there is hope for you to find some of these things that can make your marriage easier to fit in the socket. The other example I usually use is, it takes someone to acknowledge who they are first to choose, for example, which washrooms to enter. If you go to a hotel and you want to enter a certain washroom, there's usually men, women, or gents and ladies. But what makes you choose which washroom to enter is primarily acknowledging who you are first. I am a man, so I will enter the men's washrooms. Or I'm a lady, so I will enter the ladies' washrooms. It's not the ladies' washrooms that defines your identity or where to enter. It's you who acknowledges first, then makes the choice. So it takes us back to my first point: self-discovery, your personality, your temperament, etc. All those things that define you, and then you make a decision. So there are very many tests out there that can help you figure out these things for yourself, so that it gives you, it makes it easy for you to make a choice. So you could be in a dilemma today. You could be in a season where you're trying to choose who to marry. Please take these things serious, because once you've crossed, it's on you. You can't blame anyone. Many people who have had issues in their marriages honestly knew the things that separated them, but they ignored them. Not because they didn't know that they were red flags, yeah, but because they didn't know that they were red flags to them. You know, you can see a red flag and ignore it, but there's seeing it as a red flag to you, to your core, and you say, that's the same thing Adam did. Every time they brought an animal, he realized there was no companionship, but he gave it a name, and that it became. But when the woman came, God didn't choose Eve as a wife to Adam. Adam had to make that choice. All that God did was bring Eve to him. He didn't even call her Eve, it's Adam who called her Eve. So there's no excuse. You can't say, I am praying for 40 days to find a woman, a wife. I am praying for whatever, fasting to find. No. The Bible says that God has given us everything that pertains to life and godliness. That means He has given you the wisdom to choose the right person. We just need to use the things He has given us to make the right choice. We are not in the days of fleecing God anymore, to say, God, if she comes in purple, she's the one. No. He has given you everything that pertains to life. Life, your decisions in life, your choices in life. He has given you everything. It's up to you to discover these things and utilize them as you should, including choosing a partner. See how wise God is. He doesn't want to be in the space where you're saying, God, the woman you gave me. No, Adam, God didn't give you. He presented, you chose. So she becomes your responsibility. She becomes your choice. No pastor is going to choose a wife for you. No prophet is going to choose a wife for you unless you don't know yourself. It's not in their mandate. If God prophetically inspires, well and good, but He doesn't have to do it again, because He says He has given you everything that pertains to life and godliness. So what do you want to do? You want the pastor to choose the wife for you so that afterwards you blame them for the wife they chose for you? Or that prophet, you say, it's the other prophet who chose the wife for me? No. Please leave the men of God alone. You are mature enough to make your choice as an individual. Same goes for the women. And say, I have 3 men who are, whatever, presenting their interest. Who are you? What are your needs? What do you need in a marriage relationship? Let that guide you. We have the 7 guiding lights of the Spirit. We have the resources we need to make the right choice. So I pray that God gives you the wisdom to figure out this thing. I know it can be hectic, especially because we are evolving and growing, but God has given us the grace to make the right decision. He is not to blame. He has done His part. It's now our time to do our part. So God bless you so much. Until next time, keep it wicked at conversations. And I pray that God continues to help us to become the better versions of ourselves. Even as we bring you this content, may it be of value to you. And if you're there and you've never given your life to Jesus Christ, and maybe this has inspired you to, become a Christian, a born again, just say these few words after me, believing that you have believed in your heart, and now it's time to confess. Say, Lord Jesus, I believe in my heart that you died and you rose. I am justified by your resurrection, and I am born again by your sacrifice. I receive you in my life. Take control. Be my Lord. I am born again. If you've made that simple prayer, there will be a link in the description for you to follow, and someone will reach out to you and follow you up and disciple you and give you everything you need to become a better Christian, even to help you make the right choice of a partner. God bless you. Until next time, Who is God to you today?